Hello, gorgeous seekers, and welcome to Moon Magic. We are here on the other side of a huge eclipse season full of lessons, full of really intensive learning when it came to the energy of Capricorn. Wherever that was in your chart, wherever that is in your life, we were all really going deep for a solid month there. And now, with this new moon in Aquarius, we're tapping into a different energy axis here, a different uh, energetic landscape to look at. However, we're still kind of coming out of the intensity of those eclipses. We're still coming out of the exact conjunction of Saturn and Pluto and Capricorn. These very deep root foundation learning curves that we were having are still lingering in the background of the conversation of this new moon. However, it's not an eclipse, right? We are well into Aquarius season when this new moon occurs, so we are working with the energy of the radical. Aquarian energy is tied to the collective, right? The people, the will of the people is really tied to Aquarian energy. As many of you know, this is kind of known as the age of Aquarius. We've tapped into this age over the last several years. It's been shifting into age of Aquarius for a long time. And so that idea of the will of the people, that idea of the will of the collective, Aquarius is also tied to deep healing. Of course, in pop astrology, Aquarians are often known as detached, able to, alien-like, able to perceive the world in the way that technology and all of that works from kind of a detached place. But Aquarians, anybody who is an Aquarian out there, I love you Aquarians so much, and anybody who's spent any time around Aquarian energy knows that Aquarius is a very deeply feeling, very deeply connected sign, especially the more well-balanced you are with Aquarian energy in your chart, the more you will have deep feeling, deep wells of feeling. Now, it's really interesting too, because this new moon is happening at 4 degrees of Aquarius. Sun and moon are hanging out there at 4 degrees, and they're squaring off with your Aquarius's ruling planet of Uranus. So Uranus is over in a fellow fixed sign of Taurus at 2 degrees, and they're squaring. So we're working with fixed sign energy here. Fixed sign energy is all about sustainability, withstanding the long process of something. It's not about just the initiation, which is what cardinal energy is all about, or the shift into something new, which is what the mutable energy is doing. Fixed energy wants to see how we can sustain something, sustain a project, sustain interest in something, and see it through to the end. So, new moons, I'm a huge fan of new moons. I tend to like to tap into new moon energy more than full moon energy for ritual purposes and creative purposes, because it is so creative, because sitting in that quiet darkness can really help us hear and see more clearly. And I think one of the things I want to talk about with this sun-moon squaring off against Uranus in these fixed signs is what you want to sustain, right? What sustains you, what feels good to you. So this is a really great moon to think about that. And to think outside of the box. This square is not asking for you to keep the status quo. We have so much lit up that has to do with revolutionizing, trying to problem solve in new ways. Uranus is all about technology and revolution within technology, and Aquarius as well is all about revolution, is all about shift. So these energies are really asking you to think outside of the box. Now, here's the thing that can happen with a square like this, and with it being such electrical energy. I'm a huge fan of these energies, and I think they're really fun. But they can bring a nervousness and a sense of anxiety, which, for those of you who are on my Patreon, know that anxiousness has been a huge part of the eclipse season and the Saturn-Pluto conjunction. Anxiety has been coming up as a big theme with the collective right now, and with the energy of kind of figuring out where we are in the process of this world, with everything that's going on and with all the destruction and change and shift. A lot of anxiety has been coming to the surface. And I think this square and this moon could bring up a lot of themes of anxiety for you. But I was just listening to one of my favorite writers, thinkers, leaders, Martha Beck. I mentioned her a lot recently, but she's been kind of a big muse for me recently. And she talks about how anxiety is often a road to enlightenment. When we're anxious, we're feeling something. And she talks about it like having a wild animal within you. It's the wild part of your soul speaking to you. It's not tame, it's not domesticated, it's not something you can probably medicate it and put it to sleep a little bit, but it doesn't go away, right? For those of us who are very sensitive and live in this world, we have different levels of anxiety, and we're always like, we shouldn't be anxious. We should be getting rid of this part of our process, this anxious part of ourselves. Why am I feeling anxious? I must not be aligned. I must not be doing enough homework. I must not be chill enough if I'm having anxiety. But the way Martha Beck talks about it, she talks about how our anxiety is often speaking to us about what is working, what is speaking to our soul, and where we're needing to shift. And if we are calm enough, if we get quiet enough in listening into our anxiety, the anxiety turns from that kind of itchy, stressed feeling in our torso here, in the solar plexus and in the chest area, into yearning. When you quiet down and you don't let yourself get into a really high pitch of distress over the anxiety, and you just take some breaths and you start to listen to what the anxiety is, it's a yearning for something. And that yearning is for connection, and that yearning is for following our path. It's that itchiness that comes from knowing we have something we want to adjust in life. And it can be a really useful tool in figuring out what those adjustments are, where we're getting called to shift. And this wild animal part of ourselves, especially for those of us who are very aware, who are taking that time to check in, is going to be a part of that process. Now, Martha Beck also says, wild is good. It's good to have that wild animal within you. It's good to have that wildness of spirit and soul and song within you, obviously within reason here, right? But anxiety is a big theme with this electrical energy. It could be something that you feel coming up where you feel that desire for freedom and liberation from something, that desire to shift something. And it may be surprising where you find those shifts coming in. So this is a great time to listen into where you're feeling that itchiness, where you're feeling that anxiety. Notice and be really honest with yourself. I think these placements are also radically honest, radically cutting to the truth. Be really honest with yourself with what's working. If you say, no, this is the work, I'm supposed to love it all the time, every day, every single second, but you don't love it and it feels heavy and it's hard to admit that, this is going to be a great new moon to check in with that. There's a couple other conversations going on in the sky during that square off, during this new moon. And that is, Pluto and Saturn are still very close. They're within 1 degree of each other. So we're still doing the work we were doing during eclipse season and during the conjunction. And this is going to be a theme in 2020, just as a heads up, this theme of looking at our foundations and being really clear about what's working and being really clear about where we feel fear and learning how to self-parent. Now, this is what's really interesting. Saturn and Pluto are kind of like fatherly energies. And I would almost say, Uranus has that quality as well. But this new moon is like the parent that's like, go out and try something. Just go and do it. Don't hold back and sit here and moan over the past or like hold on to your fears. Just try and do something. So there's that radical freedom that's coming from that, which is a very different qualitative energy to what we were doing with the shadow work in Capricorn season. So that there's kind of a big shift in this energy too, and it could feel a little overwhelming. Once again, that anxiety inducing, okay, like I'm getting pushed out of my comfort zone. I'm getting pushed out of the familiar. What was home no longer is home. Right? And what was something that I could rely on maybe in past years, past experiences that maybe have been flowing up in me over the eclipse season can't come with me into this radical new space. So even though that conjunction's still doing its work, it's also saying, you can't just stay here and keep doing this work over and over again. We don't want you to just sit here. We want you to keep moving forward. Now there's a couple nice little sextiles happening here as well, which are also very liberating, very freeing, and they're really good conversations. So one, we have Mercury and Mars sextile. So we have Mercury at 13 degrees of Aquarius, and we have Mars in Sagittarius, and these two are doing a nice little sextile together. These placements are all about radical honesty, going for it, trying something new, taking a step in a direction, opening up. You know, these are very action-based, very communicative placements that are very playful and very willing to get in there and go. You know, these aren't about over-intellectualizing, especially Mars and Sagittarius, I would say. But actually, Sagittarius and Aquarius energy are very philosophical, right? They tap into that higher perspective. So one thing to use this sextile energy, one way to use the sextile energy is to kind of, these are both about the big macro lens. Both Sagittarius and Aquarius are kind of when you pull your little self out of like the day-to-day and you really look at your life. Where do you really just want to go for something? If you weren't worried about restriction, if you weren't worried about what others thought of you, if you weren't worried about your foundation and all that Capricorn work we were doing, what would you be doing? Where would you be putting your energy? That's what that sextile is really speaking to. And we'll be working with that Mars and Mercury energy for a few weeks. Very fun, very playful, very vibrant, bright, moving energy. And then we also have a really sweet, beautiful sextile with Jupiter and Venus. Venus is in 13 degrees of Pisces and Jupiter is at 12 degrees of Capricorn. And this is very nurturing energy. This is very healing energy when it comes to love, what you value, what makes you feel that kind of soft, glowing sense of growth and learning and beauty. And so this is what's interesting about all these conversations, right? At the strongest note is this Uranus moon, new moon square off, saying, what do we radically want to change? Where do we radically want to take action? And then these two sextiles are over here. What gives you joy and pleasure in the rush of excitement? And what gives you joy and pleasure in the softness and in the quiet? And we need a little bit of each of these ingredients, right? In a full life, it's not always just going to be about sitting in soft, nurturing nests all the time. It's good to have those moments of radical honesty and excitement and taking a leap of faith and a little bit of adrenaline. It's good to feel a little nervous about a change in life, but we also need that balance of nurturing and soothing. So these conversations are very supportive. They're very supportive of growth and change. And like I said, this new moon is going to say, okay, yes, you've done all that work. You did all that shedding in eclipse season. You did all that checking in with your transformational self. We don't want you to focus so much on that right now. We want to focus on the expansive vision, the wild vision, which is often experienced through anxiety, right? Their analytical minds doesn't always understand the wild vision, the wild call that's within us, right? And so it makes those two don't really get each other. The mind is very domesticated, wants a linear path, wants things to make sense. The wild within us is saying, you're not going to understand how this all makes sense till you're well within it and you're already maybe even past it. And then you may understand at that point, but this is what you're getting called to. And so this is about that wildness and that bigness of spirit. It isn't about doing the hard work of foundationals. So just kind of keep that in mind. It's a very different flavor than what we were just working with in eclipse season. When it came to security and relationships and self-value, this is about radical freedom. Let's pull some cards as we sit here with this energy. I know for me, I've been having so many dreams of places I've lived in the past, even and jobs and situations I've been in the past that were actually really positive at the time. These aren't even sad dreams, but what's really interesting is I'll be like floating through the landscape of those places. And what's really interesting is they do kind of feel like nightmares because I'll be like, I don't fit here. Strength. I love it. The oppositional to Aquarius, right? The Leo energy. The Leo-Aquarius axis is really important in feeling empowered and really being your unique individual self. You know, being yourself, really owning your weirdness and your oddness and your magnetic power is often in just owning your space and owning your presence in the moment and really honoring that. And this is what strength is all about. This is what Aquarius is all about as well. But yeah, those dreams I've been having have been really interesting because it's like, oh, I don't fit there. It's been really helpful for me because I'm going through a lot of transition in my life right now and shifting a lot of things out and starting a lot of new things. And so kind of going through those different landscapes and realizing, yeah, there's only forward radical vision is really helpful. 5 of Cups. Just as I said, there's only forward, we get this kind of reflective card. I mean, that's what I will say, though. I think in really owning your destiny and really owning your wildness, grief can come up as well. I think that anxiety can often also be an indicator that there's something really sad that you are releasing and mourning and letting go of. And often we hold the anxiety as a way to avoid feeling the full feeling. So when you're listening to anxiety, you might find that 1, there's that yearning for the bigness, the wildness, and 2, that there's grief for who you've been, what has passed, what has gone away. And, you know, as you're getting to know 8 of Swords, okay, I'm going to pull one more card just to kind of even out this conversation. 9 of Swords. Okay, this is really interesting. Because what was I just saying about the analytical mind not really understanding the wild voice and getting kind of scared of the wild voice? This is what these cards are speaking to. And I will say this, Aquarian energy can be, it's very analytical, it's very electrical, and it really does speak to that kind of nervous system storytelling. Even though it's so expansive and philosophical, it has an electrical current to it that can get you really in your head. And that is something that happens with Aquarians overthinking a little bit. It can get really in their head, really in their mental loop-de-loos. And I'm seeing that here with these cards. So once again, though, what was I just saying about anxiety? That at first appears as those anxious thoughts and as that anxious feeling in your body. My challenge to you is here. Okay, so strength was our first card out. And strength is all about peace and calm and really owning who you are, right? Sustaining energy by not burning the candle at both ends, but by choosing really deliberately and really owning your individuality. Now, that's a really strong theme in the energies here of this moon. However, this is what I think some of you may be experiencing during this new moon. Anxiety, fear, worry, and overthinking. Maybe feeling like maybe I should retrace my steps and take a few steps back and sit back. Maybe I shouldn't go and change. Maybe I should hold on to who I've been. Maybe that is safer. Now, this is an interesting part of the process of this radical openness, freedom energy that's coming after eclipse season. You're going to be asked during this new moon to mourn and release who you've been. And love on those versions of yourself. But understand that if you are in radical leading edge energy, how you do things is going to look and feel new and different. You're going to be a beginner. You're not going to know what containers to put yourself in. You're not going to know exactly what that's going to look like. And that's good. It's an indicator you're on to something bigger. When you don't have just the linear thought and the containers structuring you out. But you may be finding some resistance to the loss of who you've been, the loss of what you've left behind in the wake of the new year and the solstice and the eclipses. This is also, the first new moon we're having in the new year. This is the first new moon we're having after eclipse season. So this is the first time we are planting seeds of intention for this year and for this new version of ourselves. And as we own that space of planting those seeds of intention, that's often when the part of ourselves that's like, I'm not ready to die yet, kind of peeks up and tries to get your attention. So there's a dialogue going on there. And there is an invitation here to release, to soften, to get calm and listen to the anxiety and hear the yearning and hear the hope. and hear the release. Let yourself cry over what's been lost. Let yourself mourn what has been lost. And that can be anything from a literal situation or person to yourself. You know, if you were doing a lot of inner child work during eclipse season, crying over that little child that's no longer with you, who can't be in the driver's seat, that pained, scared teen or whatever can't be in the driver's seat anymore because there's something so much more majestic wanting to take the reins. That's something to cry over. You know, that's something to grieve and let release. And anxiety can often go down from the release of tears. Now, don't stay in it too long. That's my only thing. This isn't about wallowing. This is about releasing and making space in order to allow you to be expansive again and playful again. And we're just at the beginning of Aquarius season during this new moon. We'll have a few more weeks of that Aquarian radical freedom energy working with us, lighting us up. We're leading into the Leo full moon in February, which is going to be spectacular, brilliant, and very exciting. Once again, owning your path, owning your leadership, owning your magnetism. These are all themes in the Aquarius-Leo axis that come up again and again. And it is about shining bright. It is about making big impact. It is about owning your space. It is about the visibility of who you are and not just what you're doing deep down in the basement, in the cellar, in the spider webs that we've been doing for a while here. I hope you have a beautiful new moon. I'm really looking forward to this one. I think it's going to be such a release, such a relief, such a sense of breath. Hopefully I will do a little guided practice with you all for this new moon over on Patreon. So if you're looking for a practice to do, I'm going to do it with you. It's going to be beautiful, a great way to affirm and work through some of this heavier, denser energy. So I'll see you over on Patreon if you haven't joined me. Of course, I'm wearing one of my favorite crowns from PinkLune. She's got beautiful stuff over on her site, so go check her out as well. You can find me on my website, SARAHTAROT.com. You can email me or on Instagram at SarahVerba. I would love to see you in all of those places. And I'm sending you such radical, beautiful love for this new moon.